How did you come to FFL? Give us kind of a brief history at how you come to be with us.
So I was one of Frank DeSena, who I'm sure you know. He actually went to high school with my husband, and he was doing really well with FFL. And actually, my husband and him had kind of reconnected, and they were talking about it. So my husband told me about it. And at the time, I was actually doing very well in my career. I'm a dietitian, but I had just gone through some life changes. So I was in the process of, we had moved. So it's kind of in a transition in my life to where I could keep doing what I was doing and do exactly what I did, but implement it elsewhere.
Sure.
But I was about to have a baby. So my daughter was almost born, just had a lot of stuff going on at the time. So I was, needless to say, it was a very small window to where I was actually open. Because if you had asked me a year prior, it would have been no way. I worked hard for where I was at. I climbed the ladder. I built my business. There was no way I would ever look at anything else. So it was just, I guess, just the right season, and I was open to it. So what I did was, and I always knew life insurance was recession proof, and I think multiple streams of income are always smart. So I actually really liked the business avenue to FFL. So I was kind of at a place where I was ready to build something coincide to what I was doing, because it was up and running. So I had my daughter, and I took the 3 weeks that I had to get my license and give it a try.
Wow. Okay. And when was this?
This was back in October of 2019.
2019.
So I had my daughter. I was on maternity leave. I went and got my license and just got out in the field just to give it a go.
So you had just had your daughter when you got started.
Her, and she was 3 weeks old when I sat for the test. So.
Wow. Was that your first child? Second. Wow. Okay. And then, so dietitian, you had no previous sales experience?
None. I'm a scientist, not a salesperson.
Right. Sure. Wow. And then, so what were beginning steps like for you? Did you start with final expense, kind of like a lot of people around that time did?
Yeah, I mean, at the time that when I started, it was popular to do the Facebook final expense. Facebook final expense was popular at the time when I started. So I just started with the final expense leads, and then probably about a month into it, I started to get some second chance mortgage, and I started to mix the two.
And where were you located at that time? Are you still there now, around the Boca area?
Jupiter, Florida.
Okay, very good. And then what was it like for you? Did you have some success kind of right off the bat? Was it a big learning curve?
My first month, I had issue paid like just over 15,000, and I was. Honestly, I wasn't even really running part-time. I had a newborn. So for me, it was just really, and I still had my other business, which I didn't have any time off from. So I definitely, it was kind of a crazy time in my life, but I'm a very type A personality. So I was determined to give it a shot. But yeah, my first month at issue page was about 15,000. And then I had done that. I stayed around there probably, for about 3 months. My issue pay was always about the same. And then in January 2020, I had decided that if I was going to do it, I was going to really schedule a real part-time schedule. So then I moved to, real part-time, where I was running, 15 to, 16 appointments a week. As much as I could. I would try to take 3 days and just, run, dial one day, run hard those 2 days. And then my issue paid, went up, anywhere between 25 to 40,000.
Okay. And at what point, and kind of skipping ahead here a little bit, at what point did you decide, because obviously you were a business owner, you had found some success, like you said, you had worked very hard for where you were, and it sounds like you were successful, but you were open to other opportunities. At what point did you decide FFL, kind of, this is where it's at for me, like this is worth kind of going in on? Because obviously now, Hall of Fame producer, you're definitely aggressively building an agency. What did, and I know we're probably skipping over some things here, but when did that become something for you?
When COVID hit. When COVID hit, no one expected it. And I had, I'm a sports dietitian. So I had a lot of my sports teams. We all, know what happened. Just a lot of restrictions were going on. And just got hard. And honestly, I just, I looked and I go, I mean, I'm not going to sit here and fight this, uphill battle. Obviously, this is recession proof, and it tested out to be, there was more leads coming in, than ever. People get scared, they need insurance. So that was really, even I wasn't at a place in my life to where I could go full time, but I aggressively put in a part-time schedule. I just started to build my days that I was working with Family First Life. They were 12-hour days. I was building. I didn't care what I was, I was really focused on making this work with the time that I could pour into it. So definitely, I mean, during COVID, it became a no-brainer. It's something that doesn't matter what happens, you're never going out of business. So that was definitely my turning point.
Absolutely. And what did that, now you say kind of aggressively going part-time, how did that look for you? So you were going just on the weekends, and how did that start, and how did it change, if it evolved over time?
Over time, on the beginning, and sometimes I usually tell people too when I talk, someone just got to figure it out. Kind of like today, got my 1-year-old running around, have a schedule full. Tomorrow I'm leaving for Tallahassee. I've got meetings, I've got appointments, and now I have no nanny. Sometimes you just grind and figure it out. So I would say my first few months with FFL just wasn't perfect. It was, listen, when I could get help, this is when I ran. If I had this day, there was no, I was very consistent with, I needed to be in the field every week. And I knew the importance of not, I knew what it was like to get a business up and running. So that was, to me, a non-issue. But when I really made, when I knew, okay, this is the route that I'm really going to go, I tell people, listen, for me, part-time hitting Hall of Fame wasn't working 20 hours a week. I basically took 40 hours and condensed it into 3 days. So I decided at that point to commit Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday to being in the field. So Monday, was my dial day. Tuesday, Wednesday, don't expect me home. I left at 8. I didn't care how many appointments I had. I wasn't coming home till 8, 9, 10, 11 o'clock at night. I'm gonna tell people there's so many nights where I walked in the door 11, 12 p.m. I still do. Those are my days I was committed to working. So there was nothing that was going to stop me or get in the way of me working those days. So I committed the first 3 days of my week to running business. And then as far as, building, that was all the time. I'd recruit on the weekends if I needed to. If I was, driving, I had a long drive to, a lot of my other contracts from my dietetics business. I'd be recruiting in the car. So it was a whole different, mind shift to just going to make it happen.
Sure. So obviously running very full days. How many appointments are you running on one day? How many in a week?
16.
16.
But what I would do is, even if I, had 8, I would still be door knocking, resolving leads. It didn't matter. If I had 4 appointments or had 8, I was still gone 12 hours for the day. If I had to door knock and resolve leads, there was no corner left unturned. It didn't matter the work I had to put into, it was a grind, to go ahead and make it happen.
So obviously, with so much going on, being a mom, running a side business, all these different things, you pretty much had to dedicate this time, because you're like, this is the time I work, and you work during that time. It sounds like you said, even if you didn't have appointments, you're finding a way to make it productive.
Definitely. I wasn't stopping for lunch. I wasn't coming home for lunch. If I had my last appointment and I was done at 6, I still wasn't coming home. I was resolving leads, until 8 or 9.
Very good. Very good. And are you incorporating now, obviously working around your area? Do you also do travel trips, or hopping on a plane going somewhere? Or
yeah,
how does that look for you?
I will. Yeah. When I need to, I do. I
Okay.
had, but even for me, I tell people you get paid a lot of money to drive. Typically I'm driving a couple hours to start my day anywhere. So I wouldn't say I'm right in my backyard. I mean, that to me is normal. But yeah, I mean, I headed out, tonight. I'm gonna be gone, next couple days, and, meet with some agents and run a bunch of business. Definitely. Sometimes you just got to go where the leads are. You have to be willing to pivot.
Sure. So obviously, you don't even need to say it for anyone watching or seeing this, that obviously your work ethic is powering you through anything. You came into this with no experience. You already had a tremendous work ethic being a business owner, and that is just really helped you in this business. Of course, what did that, scaling back just a little bit, we have a lot of agents coming in like you, never been in sales, never been in insurance, and the phones and the in-home is, completely different. Starting there, what were the phones like for you? What kind of, especially working final expense, were you overcompensating by buying a lot? Was it easy for you to adjust? Was it hard? What did that look like?
I mean, I knew the value in numbers. I would say in the beginning, I was probably, I would get about, I think it's different now. I like to tell people, listen, to me, now that I've been in this, if I could go back, I would have bought more and really kind of gotten the cream of the crop. So I think in the beginning that you also learn from your mistakes, right? I think
Sure.
that you need more leads in the beginning, obviously, just to hone in on your skills. I tell people, listen, if you're running part-time, you need to be spending $1,000 a week on leads. You're going to make that back in one sale and the rest is profit, but that's always going to ensure that you have a packed part-time schedule. If you're
Right.
doing anything less, it's hit or miss. You may have a great dial day and book what you need, you may not. And, and then I just double that. I tell people, listen, if you're full-time, you're running full-time, $2,000 a week on leads. But if you're consistently doing that, to me, I mean, you should be, as a part-time agent, there's never a reason why you should be writing less than 20 grand a month. If you're putting that in, I mean, to me, you should be 20K or more a month, part-time, full-time. It doesn't, we have too many resources, and the process now is too simple. You just need to have work ethic. So I would like to say, you learn, you go back and you learn. So that's what I'd recommend for any new agent, to absolutely be, have an overflow of leads, so that I think you're putting yourself more at risk by not having enough and spending less. You're more at risk of losing the lesser amount of money than you are if you just double it. Then it's guaranteed. It's a guaranteed you're going to make it back plus a huge surplus.
Sure. And I don't think we've ever had a top producer on here, or I've interviewed one or even spoken to one anywhere else that said anything different. The name of the game is leads. No matter how good you are, you're putting the numbers in your favor. So you were, and not like you said, that was perfectly said, especially at the beginning when you don't have the skill. Of course, that's when you need more opportunities to hone your abilities and skills. So you did that on the phone, did that with leads. How did the in-home look like for you? Was that something that you would say you struggled with at the beginning? How did you kind of cut your teeth?
Everyone struggles with in-home in the beginning. Another way that I tell agents is your first 100 appointments are all trial, error, and practice, and you need to be calling another agent inside the home. I mean, that's all I did. It's very simple. So I would, I'd call Frank all the time. My first appointments in the house, I'd get in the house and I'd call him. Use your resources. So I don't think anyone just gets in the home and you're just that good, right off the bat or right away. I mean, it's like anything new. So I would say what helped me was I'm, very authoritative. So I'm used to telling people what to do because that's part of my career. I've never been, iffy on that. So I think that's always a good approach to take, to walk in like you're telling them what to do, because they're looking for direction. And then also, I mean, the two things I think that helped me the most, and I even tell new agents, just care. Being a dietitian, you to be in my field, you have to care about people. And it was a passion. I loved it. And if you apply that same thing to where you're truly trying to put them in the best situation, they feel that and they know that. So if you can get in and you can care, all of a sudden you're not a sales agent, you're not a salesperson, you're there to help that family. And if you can not be wishy-washy, but tell them what they need to do to put them in the best situation and take control inside the home, I think you're going to be way more successful than than anyone else walking in that doesn't really know what they're doing. That makes sense. And then also use your resources, calling the house, very simple to say, listen, I'm going to call my supervisor, field underwriter, and just make sure we're putting you in the best position possible. And I did that in every single home.
Yeah. And that's something I want to highlight too, that I've heard from a lot of top, producers. We had Marco Condi probably about a month ago. And we were talking about his ramp up. He started struggling the first few weeks. And, we asked him, this guy, similar to your situation, very successful in business, beforehand. He certainly wasn't a novice, in business. And, can be difficult to humble yourself and to say, I don't know. Sometimes people are scared to do that. But what he said was so powerful. And you said it right there too. He's like, what really changed for me is I just started calling my upline in every house. And I tell my agents that all the time. I'm like, look, I will never reject a call when you're sitting in front of somebody. I will take now, if you want to call me about and complain about leads or this or that, I'm probably not going to take your phone calls after I have too many people calling me. But anytime you're in front of somebody, saying, hey, I need help in this situation, I'm gonna give it to you. And we'll have some time for questions here right at the end. And well, great. Well, let me ask you something. So throw something in here. Obviously now, Alison, you're much more seasoned. You've spent some time, you're a Hall of Fame producer, and now you're training quite a bit of people, recruiting. What do you see with the people that you bring in that I'll ask this question one of two ways.
Mm-hmm.
One, characteristics that you see in people who come in and they are successful, and B, the things that you are consistently seeing that are holding people back. So now probably at this point, you come in and you identify someone has this thing and you're like, well, we're gonna have a big hurdle right off the bat if this person is ever gonna do anything.
I'm gonna say what holds people back, because honestly, it's, dealing with new agents, it's probably much easier to point out. Inconsistency holds everyone back. I think too many times I see people come in and they do all the right things for 2 weeks and then they fall off. They're not as consistent. So I think the activity is huge. I think new agents make the biggest mistake by not being consistent for the first 90 days in the business. I also think another thing that holds everyone back is lead spend, which is huge. If you don't have leads, you're not funding your business. Therefore, you're just running in a rabbit circle of trying to get the strangler. It's gonna be you're going in a wheel and you're not gonna jump off of it. So I think that when people are not investing in their business, the first 90 days is crucial. To me, that is your make it or break it. And if you do all the right things, you will make it. And if you don't, you won't. So I would say the biggest things, like if you were to give me a new agent and you told me that they're gonna spend on leads, they're going to reinvest into leads, they're going to follow what other people are doing that are successful and not try to reinvent the wheel, and that they're gonna be consistent, you have a first-year Hall of Fame producer.
Sure. And something you said there, and I think you coming in had a natural advantage that I see a lot. And with other top producers that I see, people that come in that were already business owners are not afraid to buy leads, typically speaking, because you're so accustomed already. And I was just talking to another Hall of Fame producer, Rob Richmond, not too long ago, and he said, you can't save your way to being a high income earner. And that's something that business owners understand. You really do. It's cliche and it's been said many, many times, but it's very true. You really do have to spend money to make money.
Absolutely.
And people who come in who just have it, and not saying this in a degrading way at all, but who have a little bit of a W-2 mindset, who are used to just working and receiving a paycheck, but have never created something, and spent and risked. It's difficult for them to come into FFL. Even people that I've seen, great salespeople, that were top producers, sometimes it's hard for them to make that mental gap. And obviously you said it there. Have you seen personally, now growing and building agents, bringing many people over, something that has helped someone make that transition? Or is it as simple as they just have to believe in themselves and spend?
Honestly, I think it's as simple as that. It really is. I also think another thing that holds people back is they become way too emotional. And I think it's as simple as commit to your commitments. If you decide that you're going to do this, then you need to do what everyone else is doing that makes you successful. So you need to spend on leads, you need to be consistent, and you just need to make a decision to commit to it. Oftentimes from new agents, they get very emotional, and I kind of feel like I'm at a point too, where it's like, listen, like we don't have time for emotions in this business. You don't. Like, you're a business owner now, so you need to put your emotions back to the door and just follow the steps. So for me, I think it's a very simple, make a decision and make a commitment to stick it out for 90 days. And if you can do that, you're not going to have any problems. And also, I think that when you make that, you don't even have time to be emotional about it, because you're so busy doing what you need to do that you don't have time to sit there and whine and complain and wonder this and what. Like, you don't even have time for it. You know, because you're so
Yeah.
busy doing the right things and you're so busy being consistent with what you committed with. So I think it knocks out two birds in one stone. It takes the, you
Right.
know, the emotional aspect out of it. Your first 90 days, you're going to be tired, you're going to be exhausted, you're going to be drained. It's all part of it. If you're not
Hmm.
working hard enough. That's what I tell people.
Right.
You know, like this isn't easy. I'm not going to lie to you. Is that you come in here, money doesn't grow on trees. You're going to earn it. But in this
Right.
business, at least you know the more work you put in, the more money you're going to make. You know, unlike your other
Yeah.
jobs where if they ask you to work twice as long and the same paycheck, you don't have a choice. You better work twice as long to make the same paycheck. You're going to lose your job. At least
Right.
here, you know, you put that extra time in, you're going to, you know, reap what you sow and you're going to see the reward. So, I mean,
Yeah.
listen, sometimes I've been accused of not being, you know, being very black and white and not
Yeah.
being emotionally sensitive. I grew up with 4 brothers and
Mm.
married a Marine, so we don't run too high on, you know, you always do what's right. You don't act on how you feel. To me, that, and it applies in business as well, especially in business. You don't act
Sure.
on your feelings or your emotions. You just, you know, you put those to the side and do what you need to do. So, I mean, I think it's pretty simple. It's
Yeah.
as simple as a decision and just sticking it out.
Well, what you said there, so you said a couple of things that were powerful there. For one, just understanding, and you said it time and time again there, that this is a business. And if you start thinking about it like a regular business that people are more familiar with, like a restaurant thing, it's going to take out
Yeah.
a lot of the things that people struggle with. Like you're not going to have a big month. Like if you open a new restaurant, your first month was a big break blowout. You're not going to go take a week off at the beginning of next month, and people are going to come back and see that
Exactly.
your restaurant is closed, you know, for 7 days because you wanted to take a vacation, you know, because you're
Yeah,
crushing your business, you
absolutely.
know. And for a lot of people like you who have started business, they even understand that first year when they were sitting down, if they got a loan for their business, if they sat down with
Absolutely.
a business planner, that a lot of businesses aren't even in the black for the first year or two. Like for a lot of businesses, if you get to the end of that first year and you were able to pay yourself a little bit, you
You're
had
doing
a
well.
great you
Mhm.
had a great year. Now we're not in that kind of business. You can be in here and be cash flow positive month one. You
Exactly.
certainly can.
Mhm.
But I think people who are prepping in that way and are like, okay, like I'm going to keep a lot of this in the business account. I'm not going to, because
Mhm.
the next month might be a rough month because this is a
Exactly.
business. I'm not getting paid a normal salary. So you said it. You said it there. Getting that's super powerful. And then Allison, obviously now you know you're where are you in your agency? I know you're aggressively building now. Right about how much are you guys doing?
We are. And last month we did just over 400,000.
Wow.
So this month we're aggressive. I mean, we're in a 5-week month, but you know, we are our goals are to aggressively grow. Let's put it that way.
That's that's awesome. That's
Aggressively
awesome.
grow.
And switching gears here on the last bit, and we've already kind of been delving into it a little bit. How long would you say you have been very focused on your growth as a team? So you started in end of 2019,
Mhm.
committed to this when the recession hit,
Right.
um, and that or the COVID. How long have you been aggressively building now?
You know, I mean, I was always warm market building just organically from the beginning. So I always had a little, but I would say back in October 2020, probably, you know, almost a year later is when I hired staff and really took it seriously. And you know, and then really started, you know, and you evolve too. You kind of learn things as you go. I mean, now we're
Sure.
just in full throttle mode, pedal to the metal. I now
Mm,
have the people in place that I need. So I would, you know, I would say I started, you know, like I said, it was always warm market. So it wasn't that I had a team, but to be honest, one of the mistakes I'd say looking back is, and I tell people, you need to constantly be adding to your team because my warm market team was doing well. You know, I hit VP, we were growing. And then when COVID hit, I actually had a lot of agents drop off and I
mm,
just tunneled backwards. And because I didn't have new agents coming in, it's extremely discouraging. You start to go backward, and then you're trying to gain momentum and climb again. So then I had to move to cold market hiring. If I had been doing that in the first place, we'd be in an entirely different situation. So
Sure.
October 2020 is when I started to, actually, bring on staff and really take it seriously of, okay, we're going to do this. This is the decision that needs to be done. And obviously now it's just like running appointments. It's a numbers game. You have to, you're going to, people have life. Every agent you have isn't going to stick. You can't bank on every agent, but if you're constantly adding new writers, you don't care that, 3 agents up and leave and disappear because you constantly have new agents coming in. So
right.
I would say that probably since, October 2020, probably about a year later.
Okay. So it's obvious just from several things you said, but you've got quite an indomitable spirit. You doesn't matter what wall you hit, you're gonna go over it. So you started recruiting warm market, and then you were building, hit the recession, hit a slump, and just backed off, and then you just kind of recalculated, and then hit it full steam end of the year. And what was 2020? That was your first year hitting Hall of Fame, right? You didn't do it in 2019.
But no, I mean, I had been an agent for about 2 months in 2019. Yeah.
That's
so
what
I always tell, listen, and I was honestly running maybe not even 10 appointments a week. My first full part-time, you know what I mean? What I told you, like my committed 3 days, I was going to pack 2 solid days in the field, started in January of 2020.
Okay. And where are you now? So what did that look like committing to building? Obviously you have, how many recruiters do you have? How many admins? Did you kind of do that all at once? Have you grown? Where are you now?
Yeah, I had started with actually a part-time recruiter, and if you want to focus on building, sometimes I tell people you just got to pick up where you can, when you grow. So it worked out. I started with a part-time recruiter. She actually used to be an agent, so that was great. And she started recruiting for me. And then, listen, it was very simple. If I was going to do this, I needed an admin, I needed help. I was trying to do everything, and I needed more. So then I added an admin to my staff around, October 2020. And then I was moving forward, and, so I had a part-time recruiter. I was recruiting myself, but I was drained trying to run a business. I'm running business. I remember towards the end of the year, I remember Ed gave me a call. He's like, here's your numbers. You've got a couple months to hit Hall of Fame, and I only had part-time to commit to it. So I really was like, all right, I'm going to hit Hall of Fame this year on a part-time schedule. I'm going to do it. So, I was running business, trying to manage a team, added an admin, and then, numbers need to be recruiting. You need to build. So I was recruiting on the weekends. I was just absolutely exhausted. And I remember Sean actually called me and he said, listen, you need a full-time recruiter to your staff. You're going to do this. You need somebody that's recruiting full-time. That's what's missing. So that was it. I'd hired right away, went through a few people, you go through it, went through a few people, nothing's ever perfect. Right. I ran into some big bumps and people coming, working, training them, and then just not showing up. Trying to take money and run. No, I ran through some big bumps. And then I was able to find, a great recruiter. So at this point, I have a good full-time recruiter, I have an admin, and then I have a part-time recruiter as well.
Very good. And then working out of that Boca office?
Yes.
Wow, jealous. That's a beautiful office. And you got some great people to learn from, and what a great group. And then, well, all right, I want to be very respectful of your time at the end here. I did want to open it up. Obviously, James, did you have a question?
Yes, I actually did have a question. So Alison, I just want to say, it was like truly everything happens for a reason. I'm a sole believer in God, and everything in that sort. And I wasn't going to click on this Zoom call at first, and like what you said was key as far as like productivity is everything and consistency, because I've been like working, but it hasn't been as consistent as I personally know that I should be going. And I feel like that's a result of like, my production. But, I had actually a real question for you. So when you're door knocking, what do you say to them? Because it was a couple of times I actually went to a couple of doors. It was just like, why are you here? And I kind of froze up because I was a little nervous and I just didn't know exactly what to say because it's not a real script with it,
Right. Well, I'd say I'm here because you don't answer the phone, but that's just the Italian in me that gets really annoyed. I actually act like I have an appointment. I'll just show up and say, I'm Alison, I'm the, senior underwriter, and they sent me out today for our appointment to get you this information. If it's for an internet life lead, for the general life insurance information you requested, if it's final expense, to get you the information on your burial final expenses. And I'll show up and just acting like this is the appointment. This is when they sent me out. Sometimes when I was first door knocking, I would show up and say that they sent me out for a wellness check. Our office has tried reaching you, haven't answered the phone, you requested this information, so they sent me out to do a wellness check and to get you this information. Do you have 10 minutes now? Or I would schedule a time to come back later. So that's one way to approach it. I don't ever have a script when I knock on the door. I kind of feel like whatever flows. Sometimes I'll use the wellness check, or sometimes I'll just say, listen, they sent me out today for our appointment to get you this information. This is what you requested. So here I am, and I'll just try to get in the house right then. If I can't get in the house, then I make an appointment.
Okay. And last question, when you were working part-time, how was your work schedule? How was your work schedule with FFL when you were working part-time?
So for me, I would take Monday. I'd actually start dialing on Sunday because that is when my husband was here and I had a couple, at some time in the afternoon. So I would try to get ahead on my appointments on Sunday. I had specifically, if you want to know my exact schedule, I had daycare from 8 to 1 on Monday. I'd have a babysitter come. So I'd get ahead on Sunday. I would be on the phones by 8 a.m. I would not get up from my seat. I didn't even get up to eat, like laser focused until 1 o'clock. So that's all the time I had. And then, like I said, I also had my other business. So I used the afternoon to do that. And then on Tuesday and Wednesday, those were my packed days in the field. That was all FFL. That's where, like I said, I left as soon as I got my kids to school, and you weren't going to see me until 9, 10, 11, sometimes 12 o'clock at night on Tuesday and Wednesday.
Wow, that's nice. Okay.
And then James, I would say as well, definitely YouTube, if you're not following every Family First Life channel on YouTube, do that. And then Google door knocking scripts. Not Google, but search door knocking Family First Life. Paul McLean has a great one, but there's probably about 10 videos. And some of them have exact scripts that they use. Some that Alison uses herself, different variants of that. So certainly use that resource. Okay. And then Alison, parting thing I always love to ask people, obviously Hall of Fame producer yourself, found success, not just in this business, but businesses before, now bringing in other people to get them successful here. You've seen people fall off. You've seen people, be successful. What would you say? I always love to hear something that would kind of hit someone no matter where they are, whether or not they're just getting started or they're getting a little bit of momentum, that you either wish someone had told you, or that you just wish your agents, really believe, you wish you could put it in their heads, what, just to help them be successful.
I would honestly just kind of sum up everything we said. I think it's funny when I am answering questions, I'm thinking of what do I want my new agent, what would I tell my new agent? So I kind of take out my angle on those questions. Sure. But the first thing would be lead spend. You always need to have leads. If that's something I could drill into my new agents, and they always did. Right. You always need leads. And consistency to me is the biggest thing. I think my biggest frustration, because you see what this can do for people. And I think it's so easy to sometimes even care more than they do. If I know your situation, I know what this can do for you. If you just do A, B, and C, and consistency is huge. I think that's one of the biggest things I see across the board. I think that the activity and the consistency, because I think far too often I see new agents who come in, they make a couple sales, they have a good week, they put in the same activity the next week, they don't sell anything, and then they kind of, you know, drop off a little bit the third week, you know, too many of those highs and lows. So, I mean, those would be the two biggest things: leads and consistency, and then just commit to your commitments for 90 days. If I could have every new agent do that, I mean, you're looking at a ton of Hall of Fame producers.
For sure, for sure. And for top producers, and something that you've said in passing several times, and there again, for people who are building and for people who are writing, it's obvious that caring for people is a big part of what you do. And whether that be your agents or the people you're serving. And so obviously that transitions to not only helping a lot of people on the personal producer side, but also agents as well.